Hey there, my name is Chris Winter, and in this video I'm going to try and help you decide on which camera might be best for you between two very popular cameras from Canon and Nikon. Firstly, the brand new Canon SL2 or 200D and the also very popular Nikon D5600. By the way guys, in case you want to win a Canon SL2 or a Nikon D3400, I'm currently giving one away, and all you need to do to enter is subscribe to this channel and my brand new travel channel, which is linked in the description box below. And guys, if you haven't seen it yet, definitely also make sure to check out my brand new list, the best cameras for beginners. I go through some of the cameras that would be best for you. So if you want to check that out, I'll put a link in the description box below this video and you can take a look. But anyway, let's get started and compare these two cameras. So I want to start off this video by first comparing the size and form factor of both of these cameras. Now, as you can see, these are both two compact cameras from both Nikon and Canon, and to me, this is great. Compared to larger cameras like the Canon 80D or the Nikon D7500, both of these cameras are really quite small for DSLRs. The Canon SL2 is one of the smallest DSLRs in the world, just like its predecessor, the SL1, and the Nikon D5600 is actually pretty small too. Now to be fair, some people do like having a larger body, especially if you're going to be using a larger lens like the one behind me, but for me, I actually prefer a smaller camera body. And that's because it makes it really easy to carry these cameras around with you all day without it getting in the way or getting a sore shoulder. Now, I quickly want to touch on something that's not super interesting, but something that's actually quite important, and that's the battery life between these two cameras. And this is where I really found that the Nikon D5600 won out. Overall, I was able to get around about 750 to 800 shots on the Nikon D5600 when shooting stills. In comparison, I was only able to get around about 550 to 650 shots on the Canon SL2. Now, is that a big difference? Well, if you know you're going to be shooting a lot of photos in one day, it might be. Again though, I'd always recommend carrying an extra battery, but the D5600 is a winner here. In terms of shooting videos, which is generally a little bit more intensive on the batteries with these two cameras, I found that they were both pretty similar. But again, if you are going to be shooting video, that's going to be draining your camera battery a fair bit more, so I'd always recommend getting a few extra batteries just in case. Let's talk about stills autofocus performance with both of these cameras, and I actually found that it was generally a pretty even race. Overall though, I did find that the Nikon D5600 was slightly snappier though with its autofocus in stills compared to the SL2, but not by as much as I expected. The Canon SL2 was actually really impressive with its stills autofocus, especially in good lighting conditions, but I did find that the Nikon D5600 was probably a little bit quicker and possibly a little bit more consistent. And this is likely because the Nikon D5600 has 39 autofocus points compared to just 9 on the Canon SL2. Now for most day-to-day shooting, this isn't really going to be that important at all, but if you are going to be doing a lot of sports and wildlife shooting, I'd probably take a look at the Nikon D5600 because it's probably going to be a slightly better bet. Now let's turn these cameras around and take a look at the back here at their LCD screens. I've been using the Nikon D5600 for quite a while now, probably a little over a year, and one of my favorite inclusions on it is its fully articulating screen. It's actually quite funny because the Nikon D5600 is actually one of the only DSLRs from Nikon that has this fully articulating screen, which can go in and out and also flip to the front. More expensive cameras such as the Nikon D7500 and the Nikon D500 have a different flip-up screen, which doesn't really fully articulate, and it's nowhere near as good. The Canon SL2 also has a fully articulating screen, and to me it's slightly better than the Nikon one, and it's also a touchscreen, which really does work fantastic. These really are great though on both cameras, but especially on the Canon SL2 because you can really flip the screen pretty much any direction that you want, and if you pair it up with the awesome dual pixel autofocus in the Canon SL2, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on, you really do have an awesome little video camera here. So like I just talked about before when I was talking about the screens, one of the awesome new features on the Canon SL2 and one of the reasons why I would choose this over the D5600 on a lot of occasions is its new dual pixel autofocus system. So the SL2 got an upgrade to dual pixel autofocus, which is actually found in much more expensive cameras such as the Canon 80D, 7D Mark II and the 5D Mark IV. With dual pixel autofocus, wherever you point your camera, it will smoothly and cinematically come into focus. Once you've used it, you realize that you don't want to live without it anymore because it's just so fantastic. In fact, I'm using it right now, and I've been using this in pretty much all of my videos lately, And you can see that even as I move in and out, my face is staying tracked and working really well to stay in focus. And if you pair this up with the touch screen that I was talking about before, all you need to do is tap on the back of the LCD screen, and wherever you tap will smoothly and cinematically come into focus. The D5600 though is nowhere near as good in autofocus for video, unfortunately. Although it does attempt to autofocus, it really does hunt, and it isn't anywhere near as reliable as the Canon SL2. To me, this is the biggest selling point for the Canon SL2, especially if you're into filmmaking. So if you are considering these cameras for video work, I wouldn't get the D5600, I'd get the Canon SL2. Let's talk about the burst rates quickly on both of these cameras, and they can both shoot at a pretty impressive 5 frames per second, which, just for example's sake, sounds a bit like this. For most people, this is going to be more than enough, and it should be okay for some sports shooting and wildlife. Now, when you are ready to step up to a dedicated sports camera from Canon and Nikon, I'd look at the Canon 7D Mark II and the Nikon D500, which are real beasts when it comes to fast shooting. Now, another great feature on both of these cameras, and it's a relatively new feature in DSLRs, is their connectivity. The Canon SL2 has Wi-Fi and NFC built in, and the Nikon D5600 has something called SnapBridge built in. Now, both of these allow you to connect your DSLRs wirelessly to your smartphones, so you can easily upload photos to social networks like Facebook and Instagram. Overall, I found that the Canon SL2 worked a lot better and was more consistent. Its Canon Camera Connect app worked great, especially in comparison with SnapBridge from Nikon, which I found was a little bit buggy. So which camera would you choose? Now, for me, both of these cameras are fantastic, and they're kind of in that budget, mid-range level camera, although they are relatively cheap in comparison to other DSLRs. Now, if you're going to be doing any type of video work, the winner here is the Canon SL2. It's pretty much made for video. It's only missing that headphone jack, and if it did have that headphone jack, it would be a real competitor to cameras like the Canon 80D. Having this articulating screen, that touch screen, and having that awesome dual pixel autofocus really makes this a powerhouse in a very small package. Now, we've also got the Nikon D5600, which to me is a real winner and was one of the better cameras that Nikon released last year. Now, in video, it's not great. Again, we're going to be wanting to go with the Canon SL2 if that is your main style of shooting, but for stills, the D5600 is fantastic. It's got lightning quick autofocus. Like I said before, it's got good battery life. It's got a great flip screen, so you're not really missing out on that as well. You can even flip it back so you can protect your screen when you're traveling, and it's a really small, lightweight camera. So both of these cameras are great. What it's really going to come down to is your personal preference. Do you shoot a lot of video? Go for the Canon SL2. Do you shoot a lot of stills? And do you like the Nikon side? Go for the Nikon D5600. I don't think you'll make a mistake with either of these two cameras. They're both very good, and they're both very good for their money. And guys, if you haven't seen it yet, definitely also make sure to check out my brand new list, the best cameras for beginners. I go through some of the cameras that would be best for you. So if you want to check that out, I'll put a link in the description box below this video and you can take a look. So hopefully I was able to help you even just a little bit in choosing these two cameras. Hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.